Now, the IMF's managing director, Christine Lagarde, says Ethiopia should consider slowly opening up its economy for the private sector to involve in closing the import-export trade gap within the country. In an exclusive interview with CGTN's Girum Chala, Madame Lagarde said despite the unorthodox methods, shall we say, that Ethiopia has followed, the country has managed to produce some excellent growth over the last decade. She also says IMF and the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa are working alongside the AU to transform African economies based on the Agenda 2063.
Christine Lagarde, thank you very much for talking to CGTN. It has been more than 70 years since IMF came to being, but you are the first managing director to visit Ethiopia. What has motivated your visit at this time?
I've been wanting to visit Ethiopia for a long time, and I'm only too pleased that I came before the end of 2017. It's been 72 years that Ethiopia has been a member of the institution. It was a founding member, and we have had a good relationship over the course of time. The development model that was adopted by the authorities is slightly, I would say, unorthodox relative to what we are accustomed to. There is clearly a strong role played by the state-owned enterprises, by the government, by way of planning and directing and supporting and financing, which is not necessarily the common model that we have been seeing around the world. But I was very keen to come and see it for myself. And I was particularly pleased to discuss with both the President and the Prime Minister of Ethiopia the second phase of development which they have identified. And as I said, it's an overdue visit to Ethiopia, and one that I'm delighted I could pay to the country and to the people of Ethiopia.
Ethiopia at the moment is one of the fastest growing economies, not only in Africa but in the world. But what is IMF's assessment of Ethiopia's economic performance over the last decade?
Well, if you look at the growth rate, which is one indicator, the performance of Ethiopia has been excellent. It has been either two-digit or high single-digit growth over the past 15 years or so, which is good. Second, it has managed to reduce the poverty rate in the country. And third, it has been able to face some of the hardship caused by drought, caused by social unrest and difficulties with some of the neighbors over the course of time. So if you combine that with the determination to move to phase 2 of development, which is open up to the private sector, build on public-private partnership, raise domestic revenue mobilization, control the debt of the country. I think those are good and ambitious and necessary objectives to have, which should give some comfort to the private sector investors.
Ethiopia's government provides a lot of protection for the country's financial sector, telecom sector, and others, saying that before opening up, they must be internally stronger to compete better at the end of the day. Do you buy that analogy?
You know, it might be a good idea to actually have a good success story. And there is one public company which is celebrated, congratulated, I would say, the continent over, and that is Ethiopian Airlines. I'm just, imagining that if the authorities wanted to open the equity to the public, a small chunk of it, demonstrating that private equity can actually contribute to public finance, to the competitiveness of a company, and could lead the way to other sectors opening up, such as telecom, such as banking, which could do well with such infusion of private sector equity. It doesn't mean that you lose control necessarily, and there have been many other countries in the world which have done the same thing. I'm thinking of Vietnam, I'm thinking of Korea in its old days. That's the process that they have taken.